How's it, everybody? Chris back yet again, and by now you may have seen my Paul McBeth prototype Luna disc review video, or by chance you have seen one of my numerous posts on the Discraft All Day Facebook page stating how I absolutely love throwing the prototype Luna and how I feel it's one of the greatest throwing putters ever.
Yo, cuz.
What are you doing throwing that outdated piece of crap? We all know the first run's where it's at. What, dude? Outdated? Come on, man. It's been like 2 months. Okay, well, I guess it's about time that I get out to the course and we'll see which is superior. The prototype Luna or the first run.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the flight numbers between the prototype and the first run. There was a slight change, but this is solely because of player feedback and not an actual change in the flight characteristics. Personally, I like the prototype's numbers more than the first run, mainly because I don't think that the Luna is as overstable as the first run says. In fact, I think the stability rating of the Luna should be closer to the prototypes, that of 0.0 or at best a 0.5. Now, the major change between the prototype and the first run is actually in the plastic. The prototypes have all these little specks, almost like little rubber bumps all over it, whereas the first runs are actually more like regular Jawbreaker, just extremely stiff. Now for putting, I do really like how the first run feels, but for throwing, I do prefer the bumps on the prototype. I'm releasing this video a lot later than I wanted to, solely because I wanted to try to break in the first run Luna. I'd been throwing the prototype for, I'd say, probably about a month or so. So I wanted to really break in that first run so that way they're as close in stability as they can be. As you can see from these shots, both the prototype and first run are very controllable. They can both be hyzer flipped and hold dead straight. They can both be thrown near flat and hold nice flexes. And you can even put a little bit of torque into them and get them both to hold a turnover line. Comparing the distance between the prototype and the first run, I will say the first run I think has a little bit more glide. It was staying in the air just a little bit longer and was just eking out a few extra feet on each shot compared to that prototype. I was also noticing that the first run did have a little bit more of a dump at the very end compared to the prototype. Now, I don't know if this is because obviously the first run is a little bit newer and not as beat in, but when going to the ground, it felt like the prototype was landing more flat and gently landing versus the first run right at the very last bit of the flight would kind of just dump over to its side. So now for that big question, which is superior? Is it the prototype or is it the first run? I really feel it's going to come down to the plastic. Do you like those extra little rubbery bumps that are all over the prototype, or do you like how smooth the first run is? Now, personally, for throwing, again, I do like the prototype, but for putting, oh my goodness, the first run is amazing for putting. Just absolutely feels great and comes out so nice and smooth. And something else to consider is actually the availability of the discs. Obviously, the first runs are going to be much more available to the public than the prototypes. I did stock up on the protos, so I may keep the prototypes in my bag, but I'm really happy to know that at least in terms of throwing and control, the two discs are very similar. Again, I do think that the prototype just doesn't have as much glide, but I really think that these discs are so very close to each other that it's really just going to come down to how do you like the grip? Do you like how smooth the first run is, or do you like the bumps of the prototype? Well, thank you so much for watching this, guys. Hopefully this was informative to you, and a big thank you to Riverside for their continued support.